So our next example is solving rational equations. So here we're going to continue and use some of the techniques that we've already been using for simplifying. The first thing is, well, when you have a rational equation, one method to actually solve something like this is to first factor all the fractions that are involved and identify amongst all those fractions what is the lowest common denominator, right? The least common denominator. So these fractions are already factored, and we can just kind of look at these and see what are the missing factors. So this is missing a 5, this is missing x plus 5, this is missing x plus 5. So one method is to multiply by the least common denominator. So what would the least common denominator be? Well, it would be the denominator would have 5 times x plus 5. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to multiply by that. So again, what did we do here? We multiply the equation by the least common denominator. And this is, so that's the key to this. And really this is after factoring all the fractions. You would multiply by the least common denominator amongst all those. So again, this is missing a 5, this is missing x plus 5, this is missing a 5. So the least common denominator is 5 times x plus 5. So we're going to multiply by that. Now, what you're going to do is reduce. Okay, so if we multiply all these expressions by this, what are we going to have? We're going to have 2 times 5 x plus 5 over x plus 5 equals 2 times 5 times x plus 5 over 5 minus x times 5 times x plus 5 over x plus 5. Okay, and now we're going to be able to reduce. So x plus 5's cancel, the 5's cancel, and the x plus 5's cancel. And so see, we're no longer going to have actually fractions here. This is just going to turn into an equation that we already know how to solve, right? So 2x plus 5 minus 5x, and now we just proceed as we normally would. So first distribute, and then we have 10 equals minus 3x plus 10, minus 3x, and then we'll bring this 10 over here, we'll subtract it, right? So subtracting 10 over will give us 0 equals negative 3x, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, so we have x is 0. Continuing on, so our next example, first factor, everything's already factored, so what is the least common denominator? So the 2 is missing a denominator of x and another x, so it's missing an x squared. This is just missing x, and this is already x squared. So it looks like the least common denominator is x squared. So we are going to multiply by that, and we are going to have then 2x squared plus 5x squared over x equals 3x squared over x squared. So what happens? Well, the x reduces that to just an x, not an x squared. The 3x squared and the x squared reduce, so now we have 2x squared plus 5x equals 3. Okay, so now we have to solve this. Well, how do we solve an expression like that? Well, we're going to subtract the 3 over, and now this is sort of a solving by factoring problem, right? So now we're going to have to factor this. So 2x, x, we're getting a minus 3, so one of them has to be minus, one of them has to be plus. We know that this is going to be a positive 5, so the positive has to go with the larger one, which is the plus 3, so that'll give us positive 6. and then the minus 1. So 2x squared plus 6x minus x gives us the 5x and minus 3, so that looks good. And so this is factored, and remember when you have multiplication of factored terms equals 0, the property of 0 says that one of those must be 0, right? Either this is 0 or x plus 3 is 0. And solving this, we have 2x equals 1, so x is equal to, dividing by 2, we have x is 1/2, or x is minus 3. Going on to our next example, so we have 1 over y plus 2, 2 over y minus 3, and this other fraction. So this trinomial we should factor first, right? So what is the factorization? So we have 1 over y plus 2 minus 2 over y minus 3, and then equals negative 2y over, and then factoring this, we have y and a y. So leading coefficient was a 1. We need the product to be minus 6 and the sum to be negative 1. So that looks like it will be minus 3 plus 2. Okay, so what are we missing? So this fraction, we're missing the y minus 3. Y minus 3, we're missing the y plus 2. And so it looks like the lowest common denominator is this one right here. So we'll multiply by y minus 3, y plus 2, the whole equation, right? So if we do that, do you see that this is going to actually just give us, well, let me write it out, but after you do enough of these, you can sort of just see exactly what you're going to get, right? It's going to reduce this factor. Multiplying this one by this one, I'll have 2y minus 3, y plus 2 over y minus 3, so it's going to reduce this one. And then the minus 2y times these two is going to reduce the entire denominator. And so we get a nice equation in the end. So what do we get here? So this is, oh, you know what? On the screen here, I just noticed you can't see this. So what was this? This is a y minus 3, y plus 2. Okay, so that's, this factor you couldn't see is actually a y plus 2. All right, so multiplying this in, we get y minus 3, y plus 2, reduces the y plus 2. Minus 2 times y minus 3, y plus 2 gives us this. And so the y minus 3 is reduced. Y minus 3, y plus 2 reduces the whole denominator. So we're left with y minus 3 minus 2 times y plus 2 equals minus 2y. Whoops. I should write arrows here. I mean, that is equal, but we're simplifying an equation actually, right? So this is y minus 3 minus, now distributing the minus 2. We have minus 2y, and then minus 4 equals minus 2y. Okay, so what do we have now? So we have minus 3y minus 7 equals minus 2y. So we can bring the 7 over here and the 2y. Okay, so let me add 7, and then we'll add 2y, we'll add 2y. So what are we left with? We're left with minus y. These cancel, equals 7. So that means y is negative 7, and that should be our solution. And of course, you could check that up here. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So first, let's fully factor. This is factored, and then the factorization for this is actually just going to be x minus 2, x plus 2. Okay, so what is the lowest common denominator? Well, it looks like it's going to be this denominator here, x minus 2, x plus 2. So let's multiply by that. And this will become what? Well, the x plus 2 and the x plus 2 are going to reduce, so you're going to end up with the x minus 2. But let's see that. X minus 2, x plus 2 divided by x plus 2 So yes, those reduce. And then plus 1 times this is x minus 2, x plus 2, divided by x minus 2, reduces the x minus 2. And then the 4 times this just gives us the 4, right? These are going to cancel or reduce. Okay, so what do we have? We have x minus 2 plus x plus 2 equals 4. So that is 2x, and 2 and 2 cancel, equals 4. And divided by 2, x is 2. Okay, now this is actually a problem, because if you go to substitute this in, you're going to actually make a 0 in this denominator here. So that is actually not a possible solution. So checking this, gives a 0 in the denominator. So this is not a solution. So what that tells us is that was the only potential solution. So there are no solutions. All right, so now let's look at our last example here. Factor, so we can find the least common denominator. So we'll have y. We want the product to be 4, sum to be 5, so that's pretty simple. Plus 4 plus 1 plus 3 over square minus a square, so y plus 1, y minus 1. And then this one is a y and a y. We want the product to be minus 4, but the sum to be positive 3. So we're going to have the positive be the 4 and the minus 1 be, the negative be with the 1. Okay, so what are we missing? So y plus 4, y plus 1. Comparing it to this one, we're missing the y minus 1. Okay, so we definitely know that we're going to have to multiply by those three. Okay, y plus 4, y plus 1, y minus 1. But are we missing any more? So we would have to add in the y minus 1 here, but there's nothing else new introduced from this one. So this would only be missing the y plus 4. This is only missing the y plus 1. So this is the least common denominator, right? So we'll multiply by that, and we'll get a simplification. So what happens? So at this point, if you want, you can skip doing the multiplication and just seeing what's going to reduce. The y plus 4 is going to reduce the y plus 4. The y plus 1 is going to reduce the y plus 1. And so we're left with the y minus 1. Okay, 1 times that. Plus 3 times what? Y plus 1 reduces y plus 1. Y minus 1 reduces y minus 1. So we're left with the y plus 4 equals y plus 4 reduces the y plus 4, y minus 1, y minus 1. So we're left with negative 1 times the y plus 1. Okay, and then now let's try to solve this. So we have y minus 1 plus 3y plus 12 equals negative y minus 1. Okay, so combining similar terms, we have 4y and then plus 11 equals negative y minus 1. So we could bring the y over here to give us a 5y, and we could bring the 11 over here to give us negative 1 minus 11, which would be negative 12. So we had divide by 5, divide by 5 to give us y equals negative 12 over 5.